Welcome to Cooking with the Collection. I'm Seema Rao, Deputy Director and Chief Experience Officer at the Akron Art Museum. And as many of you, I am working from home. And my children like to eat, it turns out, 3 times a day. So I've been cooking quite a lot. And we have been cooking recipes from all over, including recipes that we found online that artists make. This week we made Cindy Sherman's gnocchi with brown butter sauce, and she used sage, but we don't have any sage, so we use basil. That's what we have. Cindy Sherman is an artist who I wouldn't associate with food at all. Most of her work includes her in the scene, though she herself isn't making a self-portrait. She uses herself as a model because she's always there with herself, and so she can dress herself up. Her early work is pretty, I think, very relevant. They're called the Film Stills series, and these black and white photographs feature Cindy Sherman, but they're not about Cindy Sherman. They sort of have a universality. They're often women in moments of thought who might be, and there's a couple of them that take place in a kitchen, and she is not cooking, she's not eating, she is thinking. In a couple of the scenes, one of them she's fallen, and one of them she's standing at a sink. But in both of them, there are things that feel very realistic to me. I've definitely been daydreaming while I'm trying to cook dinner. It's just part of everyday life. Lots of people are busy trying to do things in the kitchen and then take a moment to think about whatever's in their head. And I love that about Cindy Sherman's early work. It's incredibly relevant. After that, she goes on to do things that are fantastical. Cindy Sherman has an amazing assortment of wigs and, paraphernalia, prosthetics that she uses to transform herself into something else. And those are also interesting. They're less, I think, about me. They don't feel like something I'm thinking about personally, but they're still visually quite fantastical and enticing and confusing, and they bring a different form of thought than yourself. They take you outside of yourself. And she has a later series that comes from the late 80s that are disasters, and there are pictures of her, for example, with food that has fallen down and disgusting things. And I vividly remember seeing those at a Cindy Sherman retrospective in Chicago, and there'd be sort of a disgusting table of food that I would never want to eat. And so when I was reading an article in a magazine that had recipes by artists, I was very surprised to see that Cindy Sherman was one of the contributors. And then I started reading more about her, and it turns out she had a very normal childhood in Long Island. She was the youngest in her family. Her oldest sister got married when she was 16, and she was actually 15 years older than Cindy Sherman. And that oldest sister had a cooking school. It sounds like she probably grew up in a place where her mother made dinner very often. And then now I follow Cindy Sherman on Instagram, and she has chickens and she grows vegetables. She grows vegetables quite a lot better than I do. I think Cindy Sherman's, work from home and then stay-at-home order meals are probably quite a lot better than me. She has a chicken coop, and she eats, all kinds of stuff. She travels and she Instagrams her food sometimes. She also Instagrams really interesting pictures of herself. So it's worth a follow. But the gnocchi and brown butter sauce is a really nice, kind of simple dish. And the reason I actually like it, to me, sort of speaks to a little bit about who Cindy Sherman is. She's a working artist. She is not taking portraits of herself. She does say in some of her later interviews, that perhaps they were therapy, but that's not how she thought of them. She is somebody who does this for a living, and then she goes home and she raises her chickens and waters her tomato plants and makes her gnocchi, and she lives a life that we're not seeing in the frame. The life that we're seeing in the frame is her artistic life. It is not Cindy Sherman. It is instead the art, the work of Cindy Sherman. And then at home, she is probably hanging out with her friends and taking pictures of her gnocchi and putting them up on Instagram. So as all of us are working from home and maybe we're thinking about our creativity, it's okay to make your creativity one thing and then go home to dinner, or maybe if you're probably both at home and working from home. You can leave your home office and go downstairs to your kitchen, or across the street, across the hall to your kitchen, and make your regular old meal and have your evening away from your art. So it's a wonderful lesson for all of us creatives out there, to be able to separate the things that you do. So thank you very much for joining me at Cooking with the Collection. Have a great day.